have some reporting back from the different groups, and then open the floor to further discussion, questions, comments, and feedback. So I'm going to ask a representative from each group to come up. And the difficulty of working with religious leaders, in my experience, is they don't know how to edit themselves. Like they'll talk for an hour, 2, 3 hours. So I'm going to ask the people who come up to speak within 3 minutes or less. That's 3 minutes or less. And Irene's going to time you, okay? 3 minutes or less on giving feedback on what your group discussed, some of the key takeaway points from that. If you have the sheets from your group, that's great. Neddy, you can also take notes on the flip chart there. So group number 1, who's the representative from group number 1? Okay, here we go. If you can also just introduce your name and organization as well.
My name's Bea Moorhead, and I'm from Texas. I'm here with my colleague Imad, and we're representing, I'm part of the delegation from Presbyterian Church USA, but we are also one of the state Interfaith Power and Light groups in the United States. So our group 1, generally the consensus was it's landing well with qualifications. One of the qualifications is that there's still concern about equity and justice. The Global South came up a lot, but that was not the only thing. It's complicated. It's very location specific. So there has to be a lot of options for implementation, I guess. And that it's really important to acknowledge diversity of approaches as being equally valuable. So that's thing number 1 is it's landing well with qualifications. Thing number 2 is there needs to be in the sort of rollout, I guess, and in all of our conversations, genuine appreciation and respect for diverse perspectives, not preaching at people and then asking them how they feel about the thing that you preached at them. And then the third, so genuine appreciation and respect for diverse perspectives. And then the third thing is there seemed to be broad consensus that the faith community has a unique role in the COP, in the global climate movement, and is possibly shy about advancing its particular expertise on the global stage. So those are our 3 things. And I bet that was not 3 minutes.
It wasn't, that was a minute and a half. Thank you so much, Bea. No, we can't yield the time to the other groups, I'm sorry. So we have some points there. So group number 2, if you could kind of come up and say your name and where you're from.
Not 4 minutes.
Not 4 minutes, just 3. You may get a minute taken off of asking too much.
Okay. Ooh. That would be fair, actually, wouldn't that be? That would be, yeah, okay. That's right, exactly. So there's a fairness example right there. Exactly. Okay, quick. My name's Joy Kennedy. I'm with the World Council of Churches, and I live in Toronto, Canada. We thought we need to start with ourselves personally and identify ourselves, what's going on in us, in our own lives. We understood that there is some balance between science knowledge and spiritual practices and wisdom. So how do we keep those in balance? We had a big focus throughout on community and partnership. We're in it together. So values that we need to articulate are things like solidarity and mutuality and generosity. Not telling people what they should be doing, but modeling it. We had a lot of talk and laughter about humor and the place of humor. Like, let's not take ourselves so seriously sometimes, eh? There's a, no, sorry. I am a Canadian, sorry. But that humor goes a long way in communication, and it also allows us to be passionate, but we need to be self-aware as well. We really liked the concept of upstanders and leading by example, but not preaching at, clearly. We can offer practical suggestions and support and actions that can be taken, but it's more important that we walk the talk. Others in the group may have things that, I mean, that's out of 5 pages, I think, or 4 pages. So, oh yeah. Huh? Oh, he's agreeing. Oh, he was in the group. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Wow, that was under 3 minutes.
So I get another minute. I can do my rant. No, no. But one of the things we talked a lot about, and I was glad that the first group talked about the developing countries and stuff, because we did note that we could tend to be a fairly Western, Northern perspective, and that it's really important. One of our group works in Kenya, and very important to understand our imbalanced, if you like, power and wealth and access to resources, et cetera, and the importance of us being aware and of our own impact, how we're connected to injustice, and that we have a responsibility in our simple living to be more honest about our abundance, but to share that, find ways to share that abundance and walk together. So, thanks for the extra minute.
You're welcome. So group number 3, who do we have?
Just hold that 1 second.
Sure.
Okay, so good afternoon. My name is Paul Kellaway. I'm part of the Shambhala Buddhist community, and I'm based in Brussels. I'll just try to condense our conversation, which was very rich, just into some key themes that came up. And I think that the theme that this is actually a very personal journey was a very strong one. And I think the transition to this becoming something that has a political, social impact has to come from that place. And there was some discussion about how to bridge that gap. And I think part of bridging came down to this idea of embodiment, that we have to recognize this can't just be a theoretical topic, that there has to be a sense of embodiment where we sort of feel this and feel sort of what it means to be inspired, and perhaps use that as a way to shift the way that we behave, and that actually almost helping to shape policy by really giving the sense that we as a society are ready for policy to shift on these issues. So almost showing governments the way. And I think something that stood out to me was this sense that, all of us gathered here, coming together from these different traditions. Somebody mentioned that, this is this common theme of humanity, and there's a real message of hope that I think can be expressed from the fact that all these spiritual traditions are gathering around this topic. And I think that that came up. And I think the aspect of storytelling was also very important too, the sense that even this morning, the number of different perspectives that we heard really open up this topic, and I think give some appreciation for the complexity of it. So I think that is part of that journey as well. And someone has to go first. It was one of the key thoughts that I wrote down. So thank you to Group 3.
Thank you very much. Round of applause. So we have about 7 minutes now. We're trying to be very strict on time. We have about, because I can hear stomachs rumbling, or maybe it's just mine. So we have about 7 minutes to open up the floor to further comments, questions, feedback, to other members in the group, to some of the panelists who are still with us. Just to churn this a little bit more before we break for lunch. Is there anyone who has any comments or questions or any feedback that wasn't raised in the group or wasn't raised in the feedback that we just had just now?
And then number 1.
Yeah.
We raised the issue of personal responsibility in starting with us to change things that need to be changed, to cooperate with it, with the help of our world and our people.
Thank you. Yeah, the need for personal change and the help of other people Another story of Mahatma Gandhi. Sorry to keep saying Gandhi stories. When he was living in India, he once joked that he was trying to live in poverty, and he said that his friends would joke about how much it cost them to keep him in poverty. Because living a life of simplicity actually is not easy, actually, in the West in a certain extent. Anybody else? Anybody else? Oh, one at the back. And please do say your name and where you're from.
Yeah, I'm Henrik Grape from World Council of Churches. The only thing I wanted to add was that I think it's important that we have narratives. I know that all our religious traditions has narratives that can actually be a vehicle to both our as individuals, but also to get a narrative of where we want to go. And sometimes I think we underestimate that the narratives actually makes us to walk the talk. And if we look out, we have so many narratives that are competing to what I mean. Just listen to the climate discussions. Some say 1.5, no way. 2 degrees, no way. We have 4 degrees. Some say 1.5 is possible. Is possible. So those are different narratives. And what are our different narratives that we have in our faith traditions? If we can bring them forward, I think that is also a driving force to actually come to overcome the climate challenge that we're facing. So, and we have multitude of them.
Great, thank you so much. Anybody else? Otherwise, I may pick on people. Anybody? Fletcher, any comments? Anything you heard in your group?
I think that how to link with the political activism that many of us are committed to, and how to build I mean, there's been this sort of separation of those two realms, and how to bring those together is something that feels important. And I think another thing is how to, and this is sort of, how to get out of the mold of being the kind of gloomy scolds about this, and really to bring, whether it's some real full-throated passion or some humor, I mean, as was said earlier, but how to be more really human with this is something that's important. There was some great stuff that was said about, could we have, clergy doing Christian clergy doing a sort of humorous sermon, with Jesus doing a different kind of Sermon on the Mount, saying, blessed are the people who have houses with 17 bedrooms, and, to sort of really start to play with this stuff publicly in a way that we show that we're strong enough that we can have some humor about it, as well as just being dour.
Good, thank you, Fletcher. Anybody else? Any other comments, questions? Yes, Laurie.
Just something I heard in Group 1 that resonated for me was from the experience of Muslims in Birmingham engaging with this, of how important it actually was not to be trying to teach people, but having the conversation arise out of their own local personal experience, and actually not even particularly talking about climate change, but making it about what the issues were that were important for them, and that led to an ability to engage with the faith basis for what this is really about. And I'd say that resonates with my experience working with Quakers.
Great, thank you so much, Laurie. I think we have time for maybe one more. Did I see a hand or a scratch? No, okay. Anybody else? Okay, good. Well, thank you so much for engaging in this process of these conversations, and we're going to continue them after lunch as well. And the reason we're doing this is because this is the launch of the initiative. Fair to say, we don't have the answers. We're developing this. We know kind of where we want to go, but we need your engagement and your lessons, your narratives, your teachings to inform this campaign, so we can go out and we can share this with our communities and so on. So your input is vital for the success of this campaign. So we really appreciate you engaging and coming forward with your comments and your feedback. I'm going to pass it over to Neddy now for a little spiritual pause before we break for lunch.